Right, we are live. Fingers crossed everyone can see and hear us okay. Please give us a like or a love. Give us a notification in the comments to let us know that you can see us. I'm watching the Facebook numbers like crazy to see if it actually works tonight. Let me jump in, because I had major technical issues last week. I can see people jumping on, so fingers crossed, hopefully that's good. My name is Natalie Cromie and I'm the content director here at the Secret Wealth Project. And this evening I am joined by the hugely successful Jonny Smith. Good evening, Jonny. How are you?
Good evening, Natalie. Yeah, good. Obviously very busy. It's good to get a bit of time off and get an evening just to chat to you. And I know it's about Amazon, but gives a little break from being in the warehouse and getting back and just chilling at home. It's quite nice to be back at 7 o'clock. It feels good.
Absolutely. Well, this is what we were kind of talking about a little bit about beforehand. We were sort of saying it's nice to be able to, now that you've got the warehouse, be able to sort of come home and, and separate the two, even though you said you still carry on working like a madman when you're at home anyway as well. But it feels like it's a good day that's done. I'm just going to double check. Simon says, can you hear us okay, Simon? I can see it, which is good. So we'll just wait. If you are watching, if you can just sort of give us some likes and loves, give us a comment, just to let us know that you are here okay, that you can see us and hear us. I think everybody can. I'm going to jump into the comments so I can see them on here. Fingers crossed. It did put the YouTube notification out that everything was okay. So Ben's joined us, Simon's joined us. Kellyanne's watching as well. So all good. Andrew's joined us. We are both on Facebook and YouTube. Hooray!
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Brilliant. Actually worked tonight. I actually figured out what I did last week. I accidentally put the event up for sale.
Oh, really?
I don't know how I did it. I won't be able to do it again. I don't know how I did it. So that's why it didn't work last week. So there was me. I spent about 10 minutes really slagging off Facebook, saying it's rubbish and all this, but it was me. So there we go.
Yeah, I watched on a Fire Stick anyway, so I always use YouTube to watch you guys. But it's annoying with Facebook, so people don't know about it, I guess, as much.
It just gets a little bit glitchy, right?
Yeah.
Peter says, Nat put everything up for sale like a true entrepreneur. Absolutely. I was trying to resell it. I was trying to resell the event for sure. Lindsay's joined us. Sean says he can see and hear. That's good. Callum's joined us evening. Kellyanne says evening. Dar's joined us as well. Caitlin, everyone's kind of piling in now. So just before we get started, guys, I want to hear everybody's thoughts on this. So, yesterday I put out a post sort of saying, is it your goal at some point with this business to have your own commercial space? If you haven't got it already, maybe you're working with a prep center at the moment, is having your own kind of warehouse a bucket kind of list goal for you? If it is, pop it in the comments. If it isn't, which is, it's not for everybody, some people are physically unable to have their own warehouse space because maybe they're not based in the UK, or they just want that kind of digital nomad kind of life, not interested in taking on premises, want to, go through life and not have those kind of commitments. But I'd be interesting to see people's thoughts on this, where they are, because I think it depends on the type of person you are, whether or not having a warehouse for this type of business, because most people do get into this business because technically you don't need a warehouse, because obviously Amazon do it all for you. So I'm interested to hear people's thoughts on that. And while we're just waiting for that, Jonny, when was the first time? Oh, actually, sorry, before we go ahead, I will jump in. Jonny's appeared on Never Mind the Buy Box a couple of times before. Absolutely great episode. So we're not going to dive too much tonight into, Jonny and, how we found Amazon and everything like that, because we've previously covered that in a couple of episodes. So if you are interested in that, which I'm sure you are, then, go back and watch the episode that features with Jonny. In particular, I think the first one we did, it's one of my favorite ever. Never mind the buy box. It was just full of gold nuggets galore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched that one, please go back and watch that. So I want to concentrate on the sort of commercial space and kind of warehousing tonight. But Jonny,
Sure.
you know, you've been doing Amazon for, you know, a good while now. You're very experienced seller, very successful seller. What and when was the first point where you thought, okay, this is going well now. I maybe want to kind of move into my own commercial space?
Yeah, I think it's when I outgrew the 3PL, the prep center I used. And I just couldn't think how I could grow further and get that turnaround rate as good as possible. I was having a problem where I'd order stock and I'd have to do it so far in advance. You know, I couldn't instantly sell, and I just felt like my numbers really were they were dropping a lot due to that. And I just wanted that control, that flexibility. I wanted to diversify by, you know, be able to do an eBay. Of course, you can do eBay anyway with Amazon MCF. You know, start doing seller fulfilled Prime, which I can talk about later. My thoughts on that.
Yes.
Merchant fulfilled. And yeah, I wanted my own premise because I have a really big goal. I want to be, you know, a big seller. And I feel like I spoke to some really experienced people, and they said to me, look, like, who owned the prep center, they said the only way you're ever going to get to that level you really want to get to is just to have your own premise. I mean, I'm sure you can obviously still do massive numbers with a prep center, but I felt like it was the right move for me. I love Amazon. Like, this is my passion. Like, I found what I really love to do. It was just the next logical step. You know, if I was more of I guess I used to be more of an entrepreneur doing multiple businesses, like dipping my toes in different things. But I had a realization like maybe 2 years ago just to go full in, and I think like it's the next logical step to get a warehouse for myself, my personal goals, and for my business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. That's interesting that you say that, because it sounds like it wasn't, maybe you'd thought about it, you know, when you first started the business, but it sounds like it didn't actually come up until you felt, wow, I've outgrown where I am. You're with a big experienced prep center. They couldn't handle your volume. And so you were, you know, it was the decision was kind of made for you, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah. You know, when I think back to it, it's really cheap actually using a prep center. Like, I can't believe people do it for 50p. But like, you know, they wouldn't grow with me, right? Like they didn't have a push to hire quickly. People want to hire apprentices. They want to hire young people. They want to do the part time, which I can see now because I have my own business. But you know, they were understaffed, and like the pandemic hit. And you know, massive volumes coming into Amazon, and they didn't scale with the volume, and I scaled quicker than they grew, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Things. Yeah, I think in the last few years they just changed for me. Like, I used to be like wanting to do everything. Like, I did side crypto 4 years ago. I just know that I was in property, focusing on property. I was focusing on other businesses. I was trying to do other startups like auction websites and stuff like that. And, you know, I know Vlad made a really good point saying you're never going to build something unless you put like everything into it. Like, you got to allocate your time and income towards it. But I forgot your question. I'm going to.
That's all right. Don't worry. Carry on. I was listening intently. Don't worry. I think, you know, it was Matt Webley spoke about this, you know, and has spoken about this for a few years now. Laser focus is so important when building a business. And I think, you know, a lot of people fall in love and fall out of love with Amazon very quickly in terms of, you know, trying to diversify into different areas, because, you know, not all diversification is good. You have to be at the right point in your business in order to take that next step and into something else. And presumably having a warehouse, you'd already touched on it, and we will come on and talk about this a little bit later, because I think this is really important. to discuss. But presumably part of your decision making must have been diversification when you got a warehouse, thinking about diversification of the different shipping models on Amazon, fulfillment options, and also other platforms as well.
I mean, we all know what happened, right? In the last 6 months, that's only really been resolved in the last 2 weeks, but how long was it? 9 months where the restock limits just crashed down and everyone couldn't send anything in.
6 months. It was 6 months of solid pain for sellers, and before that it was 6 months. I mean, we experienced 6 months on the arbitrage side of things, but before that it was 6 months of pain for the private label folks, because they had unit restrictions in place. You could only send in 200 units on a new unit creation. So it's been a year all told of the effects of the pandemic.
Still happening. It's worse. The supply chain is worse now than it was last year during the pandemic. So for private label people, they might struggle. They might have a bunch of toys on a container just stuck on a ship, and they have no control when it might come in. So private label if you've got your stock, boom, perfect. But if you haven't got your stock in by now, then I'll be a little bit.
Yeah, the supply chain is still very much broken. It is getting better. The containers are starting. I went to Southampton earlier, drove past Southampton docks, all the containers there. They had like 3 big container ships sort of unloading there. I love container ships. I was saying this to Matt earlier. It's very random, but I think they're great container ships. I just don't know how they don't fall over.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's another wonderful good thing about the warehouse, and I'm sure some third party do it, but we do a few massive orders where we get a container in of all wholesale goods. And I don't think a 3PL would be able to handle that. Well, maybe they could if they're a big one, but it's like £50,000 worth of inventory, and you don't want to send all that to Amazon straight away, right? Because you're just going to pay a lot in storage costs. And it brings back to the different fulfillment methods is, Amazon can just change at any time. So it's so good to have different things in your arsenal, right? I remember Mark Penn talking last year about how he really benefited that he could send stuff from his warehouse. I can't remember the problem last year before Christmas, but I think people can get stuff into Amazon. So people who are fulfilling from their own warehouse are really benefiting. So it's really good to have that flexibility in that storage space. I'm saving a lot of money on just storage space, to be honest. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the issue you're referring to was when the algo changed and it started favoring merchant fulfilled seller over FBA. That hit in probably, I want to say it's 2018, but that seems too long ago.
It's last year. Something happened last year. I remember Mark saying on the podcast that because he can, fulfill direct to customers, he was killing it. Well, he's still killing it. But
I think he is very much still killing it. Absolutely. Yeah. 10 figures, here he comes for sure. Right, let me jump in on some of the comments and then we will dive deep. And I wanted to particularly, Emma says that she's managed to find us, didn't get the notification. Thanks for checking in, Emma. Good to see you. Emma has got her own warehouse as well. I want to pick up on what Andrew said here, actually. Andrew on YouTube is watching. We've had one since June. Lots of up and downs, more expensive than we thought. Lots of small expenses that add up, but it's definitely worth it, though. And that was the driving force, really, for creating this episode tonight, because I looked around on YouTube a little bit earlier and I was looking around the Facebook groups, and I really don't think people have done like a massive deep dive into warehousing and what the costs are, how long it takes, what are the parameters, what the landlord wants, what's commercial lease, where do you get a commercial lease checked, everything like that. So that's why I wanted to bring on Jonny, because Jonny, I know obviously you had some challenges, I think it's fair to say, when your process of taking on your warehouse.
So stressful.
Yeah, incredibly stressful. So I know that's why I wanted to bring Jonny on, a wealth of experience as an Amazon seller as well, because one, you've recently been through it. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone have a more complex kind of situation than yourself with taking the warehouse on. So, you know, hopefully after whoever's watching live tonight and whoever watch the replay in the future, that there will be some good information that you guys will be able to draw upon if this is something that you want to consider for the future, even if you're not considering it now. I know that Callum says it's not something that he's currently interested in. Jonny has done a great job. Absolutely tempted to be swayed with the pros and cons. Well, we will go through all of those for sure. This must be Sean that's saying this. It must be. I want to buy a 2,000. Yeah, it's Sean. I want to buy 2,000 square foot. Gonna keep dreaming. Well, you know, it happens. You've got to take those opportunities.
You need a lot of capital, because
you do.
If you're going to grow your business so you can afford a 2,000 square foot, and then you know, the actual cost of setting up a warehouse is surprisingly high, and I did just about my budget hit, but like it's extremely expensive just kitting out a warehouse. And then you got like staff costs, recruitment costs, just equipment and racking, and it's very expensive. And I think that's one thing that's not really mentioned about having a warehouse. It's the initial investment. So if you're going to put down a 25% deposit, or wherever the commercial deposit is, plus kitting it out, and then you got to have the capital left for inventory. And when you have your own warehouse, you need to constantly buy stock, right? Because you don't want any idle time. You don't want your staff having any idle time. So, you know, you're looking at a big investment national. And I mean, I guess it's a dream, obviously. And, you know, someday I want to buy a commercial deal property, but they're pretty expensive. But right now, the price is shooting up. But it takes a heck of a lot of capital. And if you could use that capital instead of putting a down payment towards stock and then just leasing instead, you know, you've got to look at the pros and cons on that. But I know you love to own stuff, and I've seen all your comments, and I love the ambition. But yeah, it's something to think about, and something I've realized how expensive it really is. Like, it really is expensive.
Oh, absolutely. You see the 3 months deposit, 3 to 6 months deposit, 3 months up front, and
4 months deposit. Yeah.
And you think, wow, okay, great, I can do this. You know, I've built up a chunk of change. But like you say, it's that kind of impetus that you got to keep going of, because if you think, right, okay, well, I paid my 3 months up front. Fair enough. Paid my deposit, done this and done that. Well, do you know what? I'll take my foot off the gas. I won't buy as much stock. Well, how are you going to pay for your next 3 months stock if you don't do that? So, you know, it's something that you have. This should never be taken lightly, because commercial leases are very, very hardcore, you know, heavy duty things to embark on. It's what, you know, bar taking out probably a mortgage, it's a big financial commitment, it's a big time commitment. You know, it can't be done lightly. And that, again, another reason why I wanted to do this episode tonight. Christopher says, own warehouse is great, have as much stock as I like. Absolutely. Still can't get his stock from Russia though. Unfortunately, I think that's a lot of people at the moment. Chris says, sorry, I don't know if Christopher or Chris. I'm going to call you Chris. My wife's fulfillment house does about 3 containers a week. It's amazing to see. Absolutely.
Wow. How big is his warehouse?
Okay. Yeah, let us know. How big is your warehouse, Christopher? 10-year lease, Christopher has said as well. But yeah, let us know that as well. Emma says costs add up with the warehouse. There is additional staff, additional costs even for PPE for staff, which you may not initially think of. Absolutely great shout on that. And it's, you know, all the things, you know, you've got to buy first aid kits, you've got to buy tea, coffee, milk, you know, all these things. I know it doesn't sound a lot, but as Andrew said, they are little costs that add up.
It's the hardest time ever to hire staff. Not ever, but for the longest time, there's more jobs than staff. So, you know, minimum wage is going up to £9.50 for adults. You know, it's incredibly competitive finding the staff and the right staff members. So, you know, recruitment costs, you could be looking for 2 full-time staff members for like £3,000-4,000 just to get 2 full-time staff members. If you use a agency or a recruitment agency or whatever it is, and staff is always going to be the most expensive part of your business, and that's also another consideration.
And getting that getting that balance right, running timetables, running rotors, okay, Bob comes in on Tuesday and Steve comes in on Wednesday, but when Bob's having his day off, you've got to make sure Steve's covering it. It's all these different factors that you don't take into account, but we'll come on to that in a moment.
Yeah, I can caveat that onto something else, but I'll talk about it later about that stuff.
I want to go back to the start because I'm not sure who's asked it. Christopher says 25,000 square feet. That's a big one.
Oh, damn. Yeah, fair play.
Like a hangar.
Yeah, it's a hangar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a hangar. Where do you live, Christopher? I'd be interested because I do have a theory about obviously where people live, and the bigger the warehouse, they can
Wales, probably.
Yeah. Somewhere that's probably not where we live. Which
exactly. That would cost a lot of money.
London or Bournemouth, which are hugely expensive. And again, I'm going to talk about that because that's another consideration that people don't take into account. It's location. Where
I moved house,
live.
like you can see.
Yeah. Stacking it all up. Imagine the business rates on that. Do you know what, Christopher? If you're happy to share as much information as we can give people tonight about this, will be absolutely phenomenal. This comment's coming in and like really quick. Ben says Christopher Pearson's wife's warehouse is amazing. Oh, well, I'd love to see a video. Please post it in Secret Wealth Project. If you can, Christopher. When you're in this sort of business, it's a bit like I always say, when I see a good cardboard box, I'm like, oh, that's a good cardboard box. Oh, look at that.
Oh, cardboard boxes. I love
yes. You find yourself doing it, don't you? You're sort of like, oh, look at that cardboard box. And it's the same with warehouses. You look at people's warehouse and you go, oh, that's a nice space.
Yeah. I found the perfect cardboard box that fits just right on a pallet, and it's Ben Bow. He'll know about this one because I gave the lead, but it's incredible, and 22p because it's used as well. So that's one thing I didn't realize is I think prep centers make all their money on boxes. You probably know better than me, but boxes are a lot cheaper than I've been buying in the past. But
well, if you want to share that, but I understand if you don't, it's entirely up to you.
The lead, no, I'm not going to share that lead because they always go out of stock in there. I know Ben Bow, he bought I think 3 pallets of it, and then they went out of stock after I gave him the lead. And I was like, God damn it! But, it's all right.
Ben. You've been well. No, fair enough. Yeah, he said bought all the he bought all the boxes for sure. Callum says, so this is where I want to go, and we've had loads of people jump on tonight, so sorry I can't run through and say hello to everyone, but welcome everybody. So what I want to do is go back to the start and kind of cover it, the process of where you started, and this ties in with Callum's question actually. So once you've gone through the process, you've already talked about it, you couldn't continue to grow the business as you are, or certainly your plans for the future of the business didn't involve you getting your own space. So when did you start looking, and where did you start looking for a commercial unit?
Sure. So I started looking last I think it was last August or September of last year, and found somewhere in November, and that's when we first said we'll have it, and that ran all the way up until 2-3 months ago. So obviously it took a long time, but it was definitely just like, oh damn, my prep costs are getting really expensive. The category I'm in and I focus on is high volume. It's a lot of units. It's not the Tom Parkinson, which is he's killing it with a prep center right now, where it's all high value goods. Mine was all £10. So for me to go further, like I have to start spending, 8-9 grand on prep fees, and I was just like, well, I could just get a warehouse and do the same thing and be more in control. But yeah, it was last year in November when my numbers started to get really good. I saw the potential. I felt like it was just, I really liked it. I loved Amazon. I felt like it's my sort of thing. And went for it. Yeah,
cool. So a couple of quick questions. Quick fire one. What was your most expensive prep bill?
Oh, I think it was like 10 grand. Yeah, last Q4. Yeah.
That must hurt after it, because you'll be like, but like you say, prep centers do earn their money, and again, a lot of people don't realize how much prep centers do earn their money. for the work that they do. So, you know, I'm sure you were more than happy to pay it. But so where did you look for the commercial space? Were you looking on Rightmove? Were you looking, you know, commercial estate agents? Was it Google? Was it just anywhere and everywhere kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think my best advice is you're never going to find it on Google or Rightmove. My best advice is honestly, just go view anything that's sort of around the area that you're looking and the sort of around the size. It doesn't matter how much it costs, doesn't matter if it looks terrible, doesn't matter if it's rubbish. The key thing you want is to speak to the agent and tell them that you're interested. Have a little face-to-face. Because that's how I found my warehouse. The warehouse I moved in now wasn't on the market. And I think most people always get it pre-market before it's on Rightmove, before it's on Google. So I would use Rightmove and property links and all that sort of thing as research. I would not source from there because if it's on there, then I imagine it's not one of the good ones because most people will take it up before it's live. It's the same with buying actual residential property. It's just building relationships, and I always go on about this, don't I? About building relationships. But yeah, it is just get a face to face. Let them know you're interested. Let them know that you're serious. Email them, and they will email you stuff before it comes up live. And I think that's the best way to do it. And yeah.
Absolutely, I completely agree. Drive around your local kind of industrial estate, things like that. Yeah, take a note of all the boards that you see. If there's a board on it, there's a chance that, it might have been up there for a long time, but at least you can get all the contacts of all the commercial ones because, you do get your multi kind of channel commercial and residential ones, but certainly the ones that we've always leased on have been very specific, very niche commercial, agents, I suppose, as opposed to your Palmer Snell or Goadsby or Goadsby residential. Actually, Goadsby commercial is really big in our area. So you do get some that do cross the, blur the lines between the two, but a lot of them you will absolutely find are definitely more niche. They're the ones that have got the ones on the shop. So every time, just do a little snapshot. It'll pull over if you're driving and take a snapshot.
Yeah, I mean, if it's on Rightmove and if it's too big, like for you want, or it's too small, just go view it and then speak to the agent and say, "Oh, this is great, but you know what? I'm actually looking for something bigger. Or I'm looking for something smaller." And they're like, oh, "Okay, cool. Like if something's coming up, we'll let you know." Call them then just start calling them every week or twice a week. And I mean, you're in recruitment and sales, so you know about this sort of it's the same as anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're 100% right, because I don't think there's ever been a time where we've ever viewed something and we said, do you know what, we like it, but it's not quite right. And then they'll say, do you know what, in 2 weeks, I've got this coming up and this will be perfect for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or you give them the opportunity to sort of say, okay, because I don't want to sound skeptical, because not all commercial spaces, because if they've been on the market for a while, are bad. It's nothing to do with that. Commercial spaces like finding the right pair of shoes. It has to fit perfectly. I think there's no point, you're going to be married to this kind of commercial unit for a relatively long period of time, so you shouldn't just take the first one, and unless obviously it always it ticks all the boxes and you've been looking online, obviously. But it is something that you shouldn't just settle in these type of scenarios, because like I said, it's something that you're going to have to work with in a long time. You have to think about your future growth as well. And it's a bit crude, some of you guys have heard me say this before, but I always say it when it comes to commercial spaces, is think of it, getting a warehouse or a commercial space is a bit like getting a boob job. Always go bigger if you can, because you'll regret it otherwise. That's definitely the way that I always look at commercial spaces, because you outgrow them, and you think, oh, okay, well, just start off. But if you're signing a 5, 7, 10-year lease, you can't, unless you're with a big, I suppose, landlord that is prepared to move you between their units, which again, that does happen as well.
That's what we hope for.
Yeah, no, it does. It absolutely happens, because we had that where we were going to consider moving our warehouse and we were going to go to another one, a bigger one the guy owned, but we decided not to for this moment in time. But it's an option, because the guy that owns our one owns a lot in the local area, which again, you find, get to know your landlord as well. So that's another tip when you eventually make that. So you decided you wanted it. What was it about that particular space that you wanted? What ticked the boxes for you?
Well, have you seen the pictures? I put some pictures up in
It's lovely. Very nice.
in my group, in Amazon Entrepreneurs group.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll give you the shout
A
out.
little pitch. Just the middle of the broadcast, just to get out there. No, it's like a big open space. It hasn't got like partitions or walls, or it's just a nice rectangle. Has a very small office area because you don't need a big office area.
Yeah.
It was 3,000 square foot, and the business rates were just over 12,000. So we get a significant discount from our business rates.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that size where you benefit from a business rates reduction, but it's also big where you can sort of produce a lot of units out of. So it's sort of like 3,000 square foot, 2,500 is a really good size.
Really
where
good.
you have a good few years of growth, I think. And if I was just doing FBA, I could probably get a crazy amount out of there, to be honest. But yeah, it was a really perfect size, and others came up, and I just like, no, this is just exactly what I need. It's a really good size. Yeah, good price as well, I think. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not compared to Newcastle, but for Northamptonshire, it was good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. And this is an important point to talk about location as well, because location and rent availability, all of these different areas will depend on where you live. Personally, from my own point of view, we've got a double whammy in Bournemouth, in this part of the world. Commercial properties are in short supply and hugely expensive. So we've got the double whammy that, a lot of people don't have. We don't have a huge amount of commercial space in the local area. We have stuff that's further afield, but again, location should play a really important part of when you're making your decision. I know for us, we've got children need to be picked up from school and things like that, obviously, but we were quite picky on location. We didn't want to be any more than a couple of miles from where our children's school are and where our home is, because we don't run a business to sit in the 9 to 5 traffic with everyone else. And I know that might sound a little bit like,
no, got it.
Yeah, but it just, my Matt was always really, steadfast on that. He's like, I am not my own boss to sit in traffic with all the other kind of people. So location was really important to us. So we had a smaller kind of pool to kind of deal with. But if you are somebody that doesn't want to sit in traffic, if you don't want to fight your way, through that kind of thing, then think about that location. Out of town is going to be less expensive. Of course it is. But if you're spending an hour, 45 minutes each way going to and from your warehouse, regardless of how much you enjoy it when you're there, I think that's an important factor to take into account.
Yeah, I mean, I'm half an hour from my warehouse, and it is a bit annoying. But my plan was never to, I've got the lease for 7 years with a 5-year break. It's a long time, and my plan isn't to be there every day supervising, and Saturdays as well for Seller Fulfill Prime, and but I know just you gotta knuckle down for a year before you can start outsourcing and stuff like that. But yeah, it is important. I looked for stuff like closer to me, but the rates and the rent was just insane. I was just like, I gotta go a little bit up north. Yeah,
absolutely. We pay through the nose for location. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. But that 100%. That's the reason why we did it. And I totally
makes sense.
I don't want to sit in traffic. Matt hates traffic. He don't want to sit in traffic, but I don't mind it, but I don't want to waste my time sat in traffic. So that is an important part if that's important to you. And again, cost wise and things like that. So you found the unit, you picked it. Now, before we go into costs, negotiations, things that people have got to take into account before they sign on the dotted line, just quickly tell us, because you found the unit in August and it was pretty much a year before you got the keys. What happened in that scenario? Because for those that don't know, Jonny had a very complex kind of period of time, but it is definitely more on the unusual side what happened to you. Most commercial properties tend to take probably about 3 months to go through. Yours was obviously 4 times that. So what was the reason for that?
I think it's because the landlord was Threadneedle, who are like the 4th biggest commercial agent or company in the UK or maybe the world. They're absolutely gigantic. So they don't care about having rent-free periods. They don't really care like at all. Like if they're losing out on 10 grand from missed out rent, they don't care. So they had no sort of urgency. Yeah, I struggled to remember actually what happened in December, but it was a lot of legal works, and then some flooding happened, and there was like a cyber attack on their company, a bunch of different stuff like that. And it just they had no urgency. So sometimes it's better just to deal with like a small landlord, I guess, just so because they're more desperate to get someone in. But it's because I was dealing with a big commercial agent. They don't care. They just care more about the legals and getting everything right. And because they care more about the legals and getting everything to the T, the legals take a lot longer as well. And it was just a lot of just sort of going back and forth between my solicitors and their solicitors. And a lot of it I don't even understand. I mean, I'm going to be honest. And it feels like a long time ago now because the last 3 months have been just jam-packed. Yeah. Amazing, jam-packed, stressful. Teething problems. Dealing with staff. It's I've already fired someone, so like it's just like it's a lot going on. Yeah.
We'll find out more about that in a minute as well, guys. Yeah. Absolutely. No, the reason I asked that was in case there was anything specific that caused the delay on either side that could have been communicated that might have been helpful to other people, but it just literally sounds like they didn't care.
Nothing I could do. I had everything ready. Just get everything ready. Your side, and I have no advice there. It was just bad luck, to be honest. I think
bad luck.
The flooding and the cyber attack,
and you hung in there because you wanted the unit. So
I'm stubborn, nothing else came up, and I was just like, I want this, and they kept saying to me, "Oh, you can move in May." I was like, awesome. And then it got delayed to June, and it got delayed to July, and then it got delayed to August when I could finally move in. Actually, the agent gave me the keys before I had the lease and just said, like, look, just don't tell them. You can move in, start moving your furniture in. Because I remember, I think I put on my group saying I've unofficially moved in, but it was just the agent saying, I'm sick of this. Just get the keys and move your stuff in. I don't know what they're doing. They're just mucking about and taking ages. So.
That's good.
I have no advice on that. It's just life.
It's
life.
Just that. Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Life. There's a couple of things you guys can do actually with regards to negotiations. So as Jonny said, he deals with like a massive company, and so probably not in those type of scenarios. But if you are with a kind of local landlord, and this comes to negotiation when you decide once you want somewhere, a lot of the time they are going to want you in relatively quickly as possible, withstanding obviously making sure that they're going to be protected from a legal point of view. There's a couple of things if you're desperate to get in quicker that you can do. You can offer to rent the space, before, rent it privately on, a monthly before going in, give them, a sort of upfront. If you're desperate to get in there quicker, that's the sort of offer that you can make. If it's going to be 3 months, but you want to get in the following month and it's empty, you can do a lot of deals. You can do things like, well, if you let me move in earlier, I'll paint it for you. Or if you do, don't ever think it's just what it is on the tin. You can always ask, as part of the negotiation when you are talking about a lease. And there's little things like, for us, because, the way I see it, we're not bothered about having too much of a beautifully decorated warehouse. We want it to be in good condition, and we'll talk about that again in a moment. But for us, every time we move into places, they say, right, it needs to be repainted, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. Well, we're moving boxes, we're moving pallets, we're putting up racking and that. We're not bothered about that type of thing. So we always say, look, You don't have to repaint it as long as, as part of the lease, it says that it wasn't repainted. If one, will you let us, instead of paying 4 months deposit, can we pay 3 months deposit? That type of thing. There's always negotiation to be done beforehand. So make sure you don't just tick everything and say yes. These type.
Yeah, we got a little bit off actually for the initial deposit. They wanted like 6 months and stuff, and we think paid 3 or 4. Just little things like that. And you talking now, it actually gave a flashback what actually happened. The warehouse needed refurb works. But the way they deal with contractors, it needs to go through like a 2-stage process to get all the contracts signed, and they just take absolutely forever. So that was why the initial reason it got delayed before everything else. Yeah,
absolutely. So you've signed, you're going ahead, you're in the process of negotiation. So what I'll do is I'll run through some of the normal things people can expect from a commercial lease, and then Jonny, if you wouldn't mind sort of letting us know, this, not the deal that you got obviously, but whether or not that's kind of in line. So
sure.
when you're looking at a commercial lease, it's very normal for these type of properties to have a long lease. Probably the earliest I've seen is probably about 5 years. Most range between 5 to 10 years, sometimes 7 years. You'll have something called a break clause generally, which is a clause probably about halfway through the lease, or maybe a third into the lease, where you can break out of the lease. But this works both ways. So the landlord, if you have a break clause, can kick you out after that period of time and you can reenact it. But generally, from your point of view, from the leasee's point of view, you generally have to give 6 months notice or a period of notice if you are going to enact a break clause. And so that's the sort of period of lease that you're talking about. Cost up front for lease, as Jonny said, generally they'll look for anywhere between 3 and 6 months deposit of what the monthly rent is.
Plus VAT.
Yeah, plus VAT. In addition to that, they also sometimes want 6 months rent up front, and then a process of paying quarterly up front. So you almost need, probably worst case scenario, sometimes it could be more, but I haven't seen many more where it's more, where you might need 6 months deposit and 9 months payment before you've even kind of walked through the door. So, definitely a year's worth of rent is a realistic consideration for what you'll need for these type of processes. Does that sound fair to you, Jonny?
Yeah, I mean, I can just be open to say how much I paid. I think it was 12 grand, and that's 3 months, 4 months deposit, 3 months up front, and a few other little costs like service charge and stuff like that up front. So before you even walked in the door, you're paying like 11, 12 grand, right? And then you got to kit it out, and that's another 11, 12 grand as well. So.
Absolutely depends on your racking. Gumtree guys, for racking, try not to buy it all brand new to start.
Buy used
because it's pre-built as well. You don't have to build it. That was always one of my biggest tips, because when we took on the second unit that we're in at the moment, because we had 2 units, and knocked through into another unit when we grew. The guy whose unit we were taking it over, we knocked through into the room, into this like big space, and it was filled with racking, and we were like, this is amazing,
gold mine.
He was like, what did he say? He said, something like, I was just gonna put it on Gumtree for someone to come and pick it up, or Facebook Marketplace or something like that. And we were like, right, act cool. There was literally probably 24 racking in there, and we were like, act cool. We were like, well, do you know what? If we give you 200 quid, we'll take it off your hands. He was like, amazing. And we were like, what? We couldn't believe it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we couldn't believe it. We were just sort of like, like 24 rackings for like 200 quid. Might have been a little bit more, like 225 or something like that. But he literally bit our hand off, because he was thinking of it as like, oh, I've got to get rid of this racking. I don't.
Yeah.
Matt says, I don't.
Yeah, I saw that comment. Yeah.
I didn't.
Me and my dad actually put up the racking. So even my dad's 70 years old. He's still he's such a beast when it comes to that sort of thing. He put the stairs up to the mezzanine floor and put the racking up.
Because you built a mezzanine as well, didn't you?
Yeah, just me and my dad. He's just he built like a kitchen. Awesome. And it's so good to have someone like that. He's just really good at that sort of thing. And I'm useless. I can just sort of pick things up, but like I can pick things up, but I don't know what's going on.
That gets it done for sure.
Yeah.
But no, absolutely. So racking, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, first place to look, guys. Before you go and buy it, because you have to build it yourself, or Matt Cromie has to build it himself for sure.
Stay away from Big Doug. It's really, really expensive.
It is expensive, but they do offers. They do offers, and we've definitely bought from there in the past, but like I said, didn't need to on the last go for sure. Let me check in on some comments before we take it any further. So we're up to lease, we're up to costs, and I'll come on to sort of your responsibilities as a tenant in a moment. Someone, I think it's Sean, how much is the electricity a month for business rates, or is it under 2,000 square foot? We'll come on to that in a moment when we talk about additional cost and that type of thing. A lot of people sort of saying, the further you go north, the cheaper it gets. It is a cliche, but it is so true. The further south you get, the more expensive it gets.
It does taper off though, like after like Northamptonshire, I think it sort of goes like that, and then sort of it's reversed like that. So it kind of like smoothens out as you go further up north, but there's a massive drop off at Northamptonshire. In Hertfordshire, where I'm from, it's ridiculous. It's probably Bournemouth. Northamptonshire drops in half. Yeah.
Like I said, apart from London, I really don't think there's many more expensive places to own commercial space than where we are. Yeah. But of course, notwithstanding, it is a generalistic comment. If you're in Manchester City, if you're in Cheshire, if you're in one of those really expensive, it's going to be expensive in those type of areas. And obviously, the further the field you can go out, the least that you are going to pay for commercial space.
Are you near to Southampton in Bournemouth? How long's the sort of?
Southampton's 30 minutes.
That's really good. Yeah. So when I get containers and I got to pay for the haulage, right?
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I could pick them up. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you know what? Again, and that the closer you are to a port as well, sometimes that can be really advantageous as well, especially if you're doing kind of private label or that type of thing. It's location's hugely important.
It really
is. It's not talked about enough as far as I'm
near to fulfillment centers as well. It really is a big one as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Emma said we're in the process of sacking someone, so we will talk about that. Even though they've caused it a horrible fear. Actually, let's talk about that now, because my previous life is as a recruitment consultant. 15 years ago, it was the last job that I did. Matt and I have owned and operated a number of business over the last 20 years that is involved, hiring and firing. It's as simple as that. And I have said this a number of times, and it's 100% true. I have hired and fired literally hundreds of people. It's not an exaggeration, because when you work in recruitment, it's something you do every single day. But in our own space as well. And when our distribution company finished a few years ago, we had to let go of our staff. And Matt will tell you, it was horrendous. Like sleepless nights. I don't mind admitting, I cried over it. I was sick with worry, and even when it's somebody's fault or they're not gelling, you feel when you take on staff that you are massively responsible for that person. You're responsible for feeding their children. You feel that you're responsible for paying their mortgage, their general cost of living and the way of life. So anybody that says, I can happily fire people, well, then you've got no moral compass as far as I'm concerned. It's a horrible feeling.
Mine was,
and it never gets better.
It was easier for me. If I had to get rid of my current staff now who've been with me for 2.5 months, that would really suck. But this person was for an agency. So it was after maybe a week. and I just straight away knew like they're not right for the role. And I didn't actually, I didn't do the firing process. You just say to the agent they're not required. So I think I kind of I over dramatized it a little bit, saying I fired someone. It's more I let them go. Says the agency they're not required anymore.
Yeah.
So
that is a lot easier.
I fired like a virtual assistant on stuff like that.
And that's horrible. That's horrible.
Yeah. But it's nothing like you've been through. So I am dramatizing it a little bit. So I don't want to feel like I've done the same. Like maybe in the next few months, who knows?
I think, do you know what? The only bit of advice I can give with that, because again, this is something that people don't really talk about, having your own warehouse space. It's very, very rare that you're going to go into a 3,000 foot square warehouse and not take on staff. So staff is definitely a big consideration when it comes to thinking about having your own space. It might not be immediately, but absolutely, you will need staff at some point in your business, and having that level of responsibility is something people really need to think about. But if you are ever in a position where you do need to, let someone go, I always think best way is, one, be massively honest, tell them exactly why, but without destroying their soul at the end of the day, if they're not going to work for you moving forward. But there's no point lying to them, because they might go into the next job thinking, oh, wow, I'm the best person in the world. I can't believe they let me go. I'm doing exactly the same wrong. So constructive criticism, I think, is, and feedback is massively important. But I always, for want of being, a bit crude, maybe do it in a shit sandwich kind of way. So, good parts, bad parts, good parts. I think that's the best way to kind of get rid of someone, and you're going to be helping them kind of moving forward. But be honest, and never, ever, ever put someone or keep someone on when you know that you're going to get rid of them. What's that phrase?
When you know, I think, like, you just they're not right.
Yeah, don't put them out of, put them out their misery kind of thing. You're doing them a little bit of a disservice by keeping them employed. That's the way I see it. I think, is it like hire slow, fire fast, something like that?
I like that. I like that phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really, really does work. So I really do think you are giving people a disservice for sure. If you're keeping them on when, it's like turkeys at Christmas, isn't it? It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point, and the longer they stay, the harder it's going to be for everyone. That's the way I say it for sure. Okay, so coming back to what we were talking about, so expectations of lease, expectations of financials up front. A couple of other things that people need to take into account, which they may have never come before if they've not experienced a commercial property, is a couple of the costs involved in terms of, one, firstly, it's very common, and we've never not had a scenario like this when you take on a commercial property, that the landlord will give you something called a full repair and lease, where you are responsible if anything goes wrong in that property during your tenure of lease. So, even if it's not your fault, if there's a flood or something like that, you are responsible for ensuring that the property is put back into the condition that you originally took it on. I take it you've got that as part of. Yeah, I don't think I've ever known someone that doesn't have it.
Yeah, I was speaking to Fred from we prep FBA, and he said the same thing. He's never seen a warehouse that hasn't got those terms, and it's pretty standard. I just saw a comment saying always look for the managed units and stuff like that. Maybe, but the service charge would be way higher, right? I would sort of neutralize it.
Absolutely. And, service units, we were going to, that's something I will cover at the end, for people that are not quite ready to maybe take the full step into a commercial lease. So full repairing leases suck. I've had retail premises. I've had people chuck a brick through the window. Nothing personal, I might add. It was just on a busy high street full of where all the degenerates go. And people abuse the shops and things like that. We've had a brick lob through a huge commercial window. We've had to pay for it ourselves because and commercial glass, again, is very, very expensive. And it's something that you don't necessarily always want to go through your insurance, because it's going to put your costs up dramatically. So, that's, thousands of pounds before you've even known it. So
Stats, all right. Sometimes it's just, I don't know how much it costs to replace commercial glass, but I think when you get to the stage of having a business with a lease, that few extra £100 or however much it is, you just pay it, because you don't want to deal with the hassle. You want to get it fixed and get it out of the way. So,
exactly.
I honestly think that.
Yeah, it was a beauty salon, and we couldn't operate with boarded up windows. It's as simple as that. You can't do it. So it doesn't look good. It doesn't look inviting. It doesn't look like people are going to have a luxurious experience being pampered when they're coming in. It just doesn't work well. So yeah, you have to suck it up and you have to get it done.
Part of business.
Yeah. Top tip from me on this, guys, is ask questions from the agent. They will be honest. Yes, they want to sell the commercial space, but they know that they have to be honest if there's any previous problems with the property that they're aware of. If they're only recently taking it on, of course not. Ask if someone like yourself, Jonny, that's got like a handy dad, do you know anyone that can come with you to have a look, just to see if there's anything that looks a little bit out of place? Does it look like it's got a bit of a leaky roof? Does
100%.
it look like, all these type of areas? So even if you need to pay someone to come in to go, do an hour's check on the place, just to see. I'm not saying that there are unscrupulous agents out there and unscrupulous landlords out there, but there are. And, as soon as you sign that lease, you're responsible for it. It's as simple as that. So please, please, please do check out the premises beforehand. You don't need to get a structural engineer to check it in, but absolutely need to make sure that these things, leaky roofs, and I know I've seen Christopher just spark a comment, leaky roofs are one of the biggest issues when it comes to warehouse space, because a lot of them have got like corrugated kind of roofs that are not as sturdy as a residential roof.
I had to install my Starlink satellite up there, like the Elon Musk's new internet thing up there. So little things like that, putting holes through to run cables through. Hopefully that won't cause me any problems. But the roofing issues was what we the big delay again to the warehouse was getting that fixed, because it's so important to have that. Jesus, £38,000. That's horrible.
I know, Christopher. I know a guy that had a warehouse and the roof got fired, and it's had to fix it properly. Cost £38,000. The landlord wouldn't pay towards it, and the company went under. Do you know what? That's a really important point. I know, it's so bad. And I have personally experienced this, a couple of times with different landlords who are completely reasonable people when you meet them, when you talk to them. But when there's an issue, it very much is turn your back. That's your problem. You sign the lease, you deal with it. And even though I think it's kind of a little bit short-sighted, because in a lot of cases, in Christopher's case, it can end up bankrupting someone, and then they'll have to go through the process all over again. It is ridiculous. But what I will say is, no matter how much you kind of scream and shout, that you have to be so careful when you are looking at your lease, because whatever you signed, again, you will find reasonable people. We had to have a little bit of work done on our lease, and on the roof. Like I said, roof issues, because it was in the first 3 months of the property going. Matt, I know Matt's watching tonight, so he will correct. As far I think, I could be wrong, but I think the landlord agreed to pay half, because it was in the first 3 months of what we took it over, but it was still a kick in the teeth. It wasn't expensive. It was a little patch up. I think it was like, we ended up paying out like £500, which you can obviously kind of suck up, but it's still annoying at the end of the day. So, which kind of moves us on to leases. So again, something people might not have experienced before. When you do take on a commercial lease, a couple of things can happen. So the landlord will generally prepare the lease with their solicitor. Now, again, I've had both scenarios. I've had a scenario when all costs were down to me. I had to pay the costs of the solicitor for the landlord. But recently, The last few, yes, that was our retail unit, our retail shop. He was a very old school landlord. He was like, no, you pay my costs as well.
Wow.
But now most of the leases that we've entered since then, everyone kind of pays their own costs. Now, you as the leasee actually will get a copy of the lease. You can read through it. Now, you don't actually have to have a solicitor handle it for you. You can do it yourself. However, I would 100% recommend you know, unless you know conveyancing law, which I don't, Matt doesn't, and we've had our fair share of commercial units, commercial warehouses and retail units and things like that. We will always ask a solicitor to look over the lease, you know.
Without doubt. Yep. I know Kev Blackburn, he got, I think, screwed because of he had like a little handshake deal with his previous landlord, and he had a bunch of struggles because of it. And he's experienced, and I think everyone, it's a mistake that surprisingly more people make than you think. But 100%, like, no doubt, get a solicitor, look for it.
Yeah, and do you know what? There's various different options that you can do. Matt said I had to prove the leak was there before we moved in. I think that was, I don't know how he managed to do that, but he obviously did. But you can use different levels of solicitor. We've always used the same commercial solicitor, so we do use a solicitor, but you can use a conveyancer, which is one step down kind of from a solicitor. They're not a full-on solicitor, but they're a conveyancer in property. Generally slightly less expensive. You can go to one, you can find them in your local high street, but you can also find these kind of people on some of the outsourced sites like Upwork and things like that. But please look for recommendations. Please look for reviews, you know, that type of thing, because you don't want to pay out a fortune to someone and they end up screwing you anyway. So, you know, my personal, don't scrimp on that.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't scrimp on it. Yeah, don't cheap out on it. Definitely not. Get someone very good. Yeah.
I don't think so. Christopher says, handshake lease bankrupt me. It's just not worth it in this day and age. And, you know, you've got to remember that we've had our fair share of commercial properties over the years, but, you know, even though I'm still only talking, you know, 7 or 8, something like that. These guys, these landlords, you know, they might have 60 properties. They might be doing this every month, you know, every week, that kind of thing. So even if you feel you're experienced in it, still get professional legal advice. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to recommend any conveyancers. I'm not going to recommend any, you know, sort of Upwork sites or anything like that. The advice right here, right now from the Secret World Project is get a solicitor to check it over. It's not worth it. It could cost you your business, and that's not an exaggeration to say that, for sure. Bob says, unfortunately, there's no more gentleman handshake agreements. It's a cutthroat. It is. That's what I was trying to say. It is cutthroat. It's as simple as that. But yeah, a couple of, you know, Christopher said it. I watched the Kev Blackburn video as well. I saw, you know, he got, you know, in trouble over it. It's just one of those things. Unfortunately, it's not worth the risk. So we've covered rent. We've covered how you found it. We've covered, you know, some of the pitfalls to look at. We talked about money to kind of kit it out, that kind of thing. You know, we've already kind of discussed that. Let's talk about a couple of other, you know, kind of hidden costs that people might not be aware of for their own space. I mean, some of the obvious ones that, you know, spring to mind are rates, you know, business rates, which are, you know, very expensive. So if it is your first foray, I suppose, into a warehouse, you might want to consider looking for properties that are under a rateable value, a certain amount of rateable value, where either you will pay no rates or a highly, you know, discounted rates, because some of these rates are based on the square footage of the property, and they can be absolutely huge. So that's important to look into, and that's the only advice I can really give on that, because it really depends on the property, the location, how big it is. You know, it's something you just need to make sure you ask the question, especially when you're talking to the agents. Are you aware of any properties that are 0 rated, or are you aware of any properties that have significant discounts?
Yeah,
because they're going to be the most popular one, guys, obviously, as well. So
that's why I wanted to hold on to that 3,000 square foot one, because it was like that perfect size, just at that perfect, almost perfect rate. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, if you are in your own warehouse space, you are responsible for all your utilities, commercial space. Unfortunately, one that does catch people out, which is quite expensive, is commercial waste, which people, again, don't really realize.
So many problems about us. So annoying.
Oh,
Biffa. They suck. Yeah.
yeah.
they the last 2 weeks they haven't turned up and they've been a week late. So we've just, the amount of boxes we go through on Amazon. It's been it's been a nightmare. It's been really, really annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's one of those things all of a sudden you think, and do you know what? Here's another good tip as well. When you're speaking to get your commercial insurance, which you will need, public personal liability, as well as stock coverage, as well as, all the coverage that you'll need for everything that goes on with the property, you'll have to insure it as well. Is that you're not allowed, one of the questions they will ask you, how much cardboard do you have in your warehouse at any one point, because it's a fire hazard. So if you've got too much building up, so you have to take care of it of commercial waste. But yeah, people really don't realize how
80
much
quid, 90 quid a month I pay. But
we pay about 100, I think.
Yeah. It's around
Yeah,
that.
we pay about 100. But I think, again, Matt handles this. I actually think we use the council for ours. I don't think we use.
I tried, but they're full. Yeah, they wouldn't. They wouldn't take any more people on.
Yeah, we use the council for our commercial waste. Our local council is cheaper than.
We try. Whoa, yeah. Well, 25,000 square foot. That's actually very cheap.
Really cheap. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we pay over 100 a month, definitely, for sure. So you've got to cover all your own utilities, guys, I'm afraid. So that'll be water, electricity, gas. Now, the good thing about the type of commercial units is, my advice: don't turn your heating on and get yourself a fleece to keep you warm, because the thing is, big high units cost a lot of money to heat. So that's why you often find people in a lot of these. By the way, we do turn our heating on. I am joking to a certain extent with that. We've got air conditioning, we've got heating as well. But you'll find a lot of places that people tend to have, the little oil heaters close to them, because heating a big unit, because you've not gone through the winter in your unit yet, have you?
No, it's just the start of the winter. We have a nice heater. No, it's temperature controlled. So I probably spent a little bit too much on that, but yeah.
Yeah, and energy costs are massively going up at the moment. So that's something people need.
Wages going up, everything going up.
Yeah. Oh, Matt says we pay $250. There we go. So I got that
10 recycling bins. Damn.
Yeah. So yeah, Matt says get a warm cardie for sure. I love Emma's comment. Do you know what? I'm going to tag Emma in this. She said, my mum was a lawyer, so she checked mine, starting to realize how lucky I've been. Absolutely. Everyone bundle onto Emma's page to get her mum's contact. We should be able to drum your mum up with some good business here, I think, Emma, with recommendations for sure. But yeah, get it solicitor check. Lee says, my local council have industrial units, parks them on the waiting list, 30-day easy in out in turn. Brilliant. Utility bins included, internet, and extra 30 quid. I see it as a business equivalent of a council house. Well, that kind of moves me on to, talking about the service units. I know Vienne talked about it earlier, is getting a warehouse is not for everyone. I always encourage everyone, before you maybe get a warehouse, if you've not used a prep center. I mean, Johnny, you were spending 10 grand a month on prep, so it's slightly different.
That's 1 month. Yeah. But it's expensive though.
Yeah, you knew that you had the cash flow to take this into account. My biggest recommendation, for sure, which has already been picked up by a couple of people here, is see if there are any service units in your local area, to see if you can absorb the costs to start with. You can also start in storage units as well. But the good thing about service units is they're kind of the halfway house between storage units and a full warehouse. Now, you are absolutely going to pay through the nose for it. You're going to pay a premium for it, because everything's included, all of your bills, all of your commercial rates. As Lee said, I think the only thing extras that you do pay for is like internet and things like that. But generally everything else, your rates, commercial rate, even a lot of cases they include teas and coffee, biscuits in the rec room kind of thing. So I would, if you are considering, but you don't know if you really want to take that leap yet, to look to see. I would say most major cities and most major towns would have some form of serviced units in the area. Yes, you're going to pay more for them, but the good thing is, probably in most cases, you're talking about a 3-month rolling contract. Maybe a month's deposit, 2 months deposit, 3 months notice. It's a lot less heavy duty than a full-on commercial lease. Working them for, sort of 6 to 12 months and see whether or not it's a cost that you can absorb into your business. If you can, then you might want to take that next step to a commercial unit. But, that's going to be my recommendation for people to start with. To see whether or not it's something they enjoy. They might, might hate it. Do you know, some people might even stay if they are operating a fully FBA business, not interested in self-fulfillment, not interested in other platforms. If you are receiving the goods in and sending them straight out again, service units might be more than what you need. It might be more than enough. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of having a warehouse and what's good with FBA is that you can hold stock in your own warehouse, and that saves on the storage costs at FBA, which is surprisingly high during Q4. So one of the biggest savings and one of the biggest benefits, actually, I think, for me anyway, I've found a warehouse is having that storage space. And I don't know how big the service units are. Maybe I'm wrong.
They're pretty big in our area.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you can get probably a 3,000 square unit one.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I would say on average, you probably could get one for 1,000 square feet quite easily. And that would probably cost you maybe £1,500 a month, something like that. I would say so. Because £1,500 a month would probably get you something bigger in size, but obviously that's all your bills. Actually, 1,500 is probably a bit low, so it's probably like 1,750 or something like that.
Yeah.
But
I saw a comment for £5,000 a year on food and drinks. Christ, sorry for the.
I'm starting to think Christopher is like the Donald Trump of of warehouses with what's going on here. I think he is. It's £5,000 a year for staff food and drinks. What are you feeding them?
Christ, caviar maybe. I don't know.
I'll tell you what they get. What they get down at our unit, they get all the out of date biscuits that come back.
I do that. Yeah. If something's running out of date, I say help yourself. Yeah, if something's damaged, help yourself. There you go. That's the way to do it. And also, people probably who stalk my storefront, I'm big in groceries. That's my main thing. So obviously I get all the good prices as well for that sort of thing. So works out pretty well for me, actually, providing food and drinks. Keeps them happy, but £5,000 a year, damn, that's a lot.
Yeah, Chris has said it's amazing to see the difference in staff sense. I bet it is, absolutely. Right, let's talk about staff whilst we're talking on them. Because I know I saw you put an advert up for a warehouse manager. You went full in. You're like, I need someone to run the place for me. So was that
that's on hold? Yeah.
That's on hold at the moment. So you've got packers in at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, so what happened is the first few weeks, first 2-3 weeks, it was just myself trying to work out the processes, getting everything set up, being like, how do I send stuff to Amazon again? I've been using the prep center for the last 6 months. Let's try and remember, get the processes, and then get staff in. And then I was just getting overloaded with stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm losing money on opportunity costs by not. Everything was just not moving, right? Because it's just me. I was like, I need bodies straight away. So my first step was I actually used an agency just to, not for a perm, but for a temp job.
Yeah.
And it was way more expensive, but it saves me on opportunity costs I was losing because of not being able to produce the units and not being able to send stuff to Amazon and so forth. So yeah, for staff, my first steps was I got 2 full-time packers, and they're still with me. And ever since then, I have a temp staff who joined me, who does Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, she's been great. She's like 16. She's in college. It's perfect. She's nice. She's quite smart. Knows what she's doing. Active. Really good. Cheap, of course, because they're 16.
What's that like? £6 an hour?
It's £6 an hour. Yeah. So the minimum is like £4.50. I was like, pay £6. Give them a little push.
Top tip, guys, always pay above minimum wage.
100%.
Always pay above minimum wage, even if it's 50p. Something like that. Minimum wage sucks. Always pay above minimum wage if you can.
Yeah. So and I've got an apprentice using the Kickstart scheme starting hopefully start of December. So what I recommend with that is using a recruitment agency, because what they do is their cut is basically you basically get a I think it's like a £2,000 allowance on every Kickstarter apprentice to be used on like software and stuff like that. They just take half of that. So they take half of your allowance that you can spend. So you don't actually pay the recruiter or anything, and they do it all for you. Yeah, so I 100% recommend using a recruitment agency to get these Kickstarter schemes. Otherwise, it takes too long. That's definitely the best. But yeah, my plan actually is to get a supervisor or manager, because again, it's one of those things where I've been talking out, and then sometimes think I need a mentor or like a business coach, because it's just sometimes it's just me on my own. It's a lot to deal with, and like when you're trying to run your business and you're also trying to supervise younger people, and if you're not looking for a few seconds, they will just sort of stare at a screen for 5 minutes. So I'm feeling like the cost of a supervisor will actually save me in the long run, because I get everything producing a lot quicker and a lot faster. So my next stage now is to hire a supervisor or warehouse manager who will constantly improve and supervise and pack and get everything running. I hope. So that's my next plan. So eventually I have 4 or 5 staff members and growing. Yeah.
And actually, I think it's a really smart move what you did with the temp side of things. Yes, it costs you a little bit more in the long run to take on some temp staff to start with. However, again, if this is your first kind of step into employing people, why not use a temp agency?
Yeah, you don't want to do it.
It's going to cost you more, but they'll cover the payroll. They'll make sure that they give them their sick allowance, they pay them their holiday pay, they're responsible for that, they're responsible everything. Even if it's a case of you just use them to get up and running for 3 months, then it gives you breathing space to be able to
you can offer them the perm job.
Yeah, offer them a permanent job
after 3 months.
The agency, only joking.
Yeah, so like
tricks.
It's a great move. It was a great move. It's expensive, and you don't get the I can't remember. It's the national insurance allowance. You get like $4,000 a year in an allowance for something like that. So I'm obviously not getting that because I'm paying an agency. So it is expensive, but it's definitely 100% worth it. And yeah, the next step is to get a supervisor, because you know what, I don't want to be 8 till 8 p.m. every day, 6 days a week in a warehouse, half an hour away for the next 7 years, next 10 years. So getting a supervisor, I've got my numbers are good now. I'm doing very best numbers I've ever done. So, I can afford it, and I just feel like it will actually improve everything. I'll be more profitable by having a supervisor. Actually.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those. And again, mindset plays a massive part in this decision here, where that probably, by taking on a supervisor, it could be £25,000-30,000, for that type of role. Yes, it means that your business might stagnate for a period of time because you're absorbing the extra costs of that member of staff, but overall has to be a long-term decision. For that type of hire, because it's going to be that type of hire, I think, is one of those hires that people really struggle to make, because ultimately they're not packing, essentially, they're coordinating, they're delegating, they're doing everything that is probably what would be considered a non-job, but it's a massively important job because they're a big cog in the wheel where everything works. And, hopefully a good person will be making you more efficient, saving you money in areas.
Yes.
They might not necessarily make you money in terms of physically putting things into boxes and sending them out to staff, but the right type of hire could be absolutely, it's a strategic hire.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they would help out with packing. I mean, I'm sure they, of course, like I want them to, it's their responsibility. Yeah.
You wouldn't want to hire me to pack anything. I send the wrong boxes. I'd be worse than the 16-year-olds on like TikTok or something like that. Anything to get out doing the packing.
They're good though. The 16-year-old I have is really, really good. I wish you could work more days. But yeah, it's I'm not sick of it, but I put it off because 2 months ago I was too premature. It was too new. I was still changing a lot of things around. I was still trying to figure out just a lot of teething problems as you do. And I felt like I'm going to just do both jobs for the first few months. I'm going to be supervised and run the business and just, I just won't have a life basically. And I mean, I think that's kind of normal for anyone starting out in a warehouse space. But yeah, definitely next move because I want to go to my partner lives in not lives in Germany, but her family's in Germany, so I want to visit her. And my partner's sister actually had a kid today, her first kid today. So I was like, I need to go see them. And I was like, well, it's really hard. Yeah. And so I got that at the moment, get flights from like Saturday evening to like early Monday morning. It just makes things hard. So it'd be really nice to have a responsibility where I feel like I have to be there. I don't like that feeling like I gotta be there. I want that feeling where I want to be there when I choose to be there.
And your business will be more productive and grow because of that more. Absolutely. And I think that's a mindset thing. That's something we can teach it obviously, but that you have to understand that, within this part of the business. So let's move on to some of the good stuff. I mean, so extra costs, utilities, insurance, $5,000 for posh teas biscuits, posh teas and biscuits and coffees in Christopher's warehouse. First aid kits, tea, coffee. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I did write this down actually.
Printers, tables, equipment, boxes.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things.
Pallet moving things.
Into account. Commercial waste, getting rid of stuff.
Pallet trucks and forklifts and
equipment if you want to go down that road. Absolutely. That 50p from the prep center is sounding pretty attractive right now. Do you know what? Even a little hidden cost here, actually. Parking. Sometimes you have to pay for additional parking spaces if you want to take that into account. We've had that with a property beforehand. I've just written some notes down here. Before we get onto the good stuff, just a couple of top tips that could trip you up that you need to take into account. Break clauses, we've already discussed about that. A couple of extra things, and this is what we always, especially for the type of business that we do, where you're going to be receiving lots of delivery within your lease with the agent. Make sure there's no issues with any access for lorries approaching, which you should be able to work that out yourself. But if you're going to be moving more into wholesale, getting pallets, the trucks only get bigger. So, if you are in an awkward location, you need to take that into account. But there could be an access clause in the lease that say you can't have deliveries at certain points because it might upset the neighbors. You might be in a commercial area that's surrounded by residential area. There's all these little things that you need to take into account. And top tip for me is, and this is what we always do if we move into a new space, a couple of weeks beforehand, we just go around and physically knock on the doors of our neighbors, introduce ourselves, what business we're going to be doing. We're going to be moving in next door. Do you know what? We run this style of business. We just wanted to let you know out of courtesy, we do receive a lot of deliveries. We don't think it's going to be an issue, but, if there are any issues, please make sure you come and talk to us about it, to see what we can do. Because if they complain to your landlord, because they might have the same landlord anyway. So it's just not worth it. And we always do a little sweet thing. Well, do you know what? We're always receiving deliveries. So if you guys are ever not around, just let us know. We're happy to take your deliveries in for you. Building relationships with your neighbours in commercial property is really important as well.
Yeah, and they don't bite. I found they all seem very nice people. Like I guess it depends where you are, but like they were super nice when I first moved in. Like let me borrow their forklifts and stuff like that, and really cool. But yeah, really nice. Definitely good to be friendly with them. And yeah,
for sure. Give them, maybe not your out of date biscuits. The next time you've got a nice load of
just the damaged ones.
Just the damaged ones. Broken business. There we go. We've talked about rubbish collection. We've talked about that. Christopher says, £20 per month per car. Absolutely. Parking spaces, do make sure you check, because sometimes you have to pay for them, like we've said. Sometimes if you intend on having a lot of space, but there's only a lot of staff, but there's only 2 parking spaces, that's something you've got to take into account.
Royal Mail Yorks as well, you need space for that.
Yeah.
So Yorks are York trolleys, so to put the parcels in, they take up a lot of space.
I've seen those. I've seen those on your Facebook. And Natalie, good point. Alarm systems, fire extinguishers, these have to be checked yearly to make sure that they comply, with everything. You have to buy this kind of stuff. First aid kits, legally you have to have a first aid kit. You have to have an accident book as well. If somebody falls over and bangs their head, you have to log it down and make sure that you make proper record, because if they decide to sue you at a later stage and you haven't done what you're supposed to have done, all of this, everything you have to take into account. But, we've covered a lot already tonight, and time has massively ticked on. I knew it was, going to be. So I appreciate your time, Jonny. But let's talk about
the bad stuff, haven't we? It's just been an hour and a half of this is why you shouldn't get a warehouse.
I know. And I feel we really need to move on to some of the good stuff, because, we have talked. I don't think we've talked negatively about it, but we've talked openly. You've recently been through it. We've got people in the comments that have got massive experience tonight. I'd like to think we've got a certain level of experience in it. So we wanted to share all the pitfalls. So we've talked about a lot of the cons. So let's talk about some of the pros, which you've already covered already. It was due to the growth of your business. But the most obvious ones that jump out straight away why you wanted your own space was the ability to diversify for different fulfillment options and different platforms.
Yes. Yeah, so I wanted to start Merchant Fulfilled. I wanted to do eBay. I wanted to take advantage of minimum order quantity, which is a big one, and I probably be a little bit hush because it's very, very profitable. But again, like obviously, it's not, you can't do that with FBA, and it's so. It also gives you that sort of exposure on listings. I know there's a certain seller that everyone complains about who's on the listing multiple times. You can do that sort of 10 plus times if you fulfill yourself, and maybe I shouldn't talk about that because it's people find it very annoying. But
well, as long as I don't think it's annoying as long as it's educating people what is acceptable within terms of service and what isn't acceptable within terms of service.
Yeah, I mean,
code of conduct, as it's called now, not terms of service anymore.
Yeah. So it's really good just receiving that stock and be able to sell it straight away. I guess it's just a nice feeling, be able to sell out in like 24 hours of receiving it. And that's probably a forecasting problem for me. But yeah, that's from new products and stuff like that. But again, like there's also pitfalls of this. There's also some big negatives, and I'm really sort of trying to weigh things up, whether like seller fulfill prime is worth it, because one of the things that they've brought into play recently is having to work on Saturdays and one weekend day. And the other issue,
you get the option whether it's Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, you have the option.
I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was Saturday obligatory, but I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that.
Should I talk about this now?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be honest. So before I had the warehouse, I thought, seller fill prime, it's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna compete with FBA, but that's not the actual reality of it. Is because what I didn't realize is that Royal Mail It doesn't show next day delivery. So even though you have the Prime badge, it doesn't show next day. So FBA will always win against seller-fulfilled Prime. The other issue I had as well is that a lot of my stock is low valued. It's like majority of my orders in total 15 to 20 pounds. And I've got to the point now where my shelves are maxed out. So it's like, well, how do I grow this sort of business unless I buy expensive stuff? So yeah, you can sort of see the problems. And the other issue is also, of course, the weekend shift where I'm having to go in a Saturday because I haven't started a sort of shift employee scheme, because that will get super expensive, because then what that means is you need someone supervising on a Saturday. You need 2 people on a Saturday. You have to start doing shifts, and it's adds complications. And the other thing as well, just FBA limits have just gone skyrocketed. So, and the easy and the best thing about Amazon is how easy FBA is, how easy it is to scale. Because all you have to do is just send more in every month, right? It's just always be looking to increase that. With seller-fulfilled Prime, you need more people, you need more space, and that's one thing where I'm like, oh God, like it's one of those things where am I, I did 25 grand last month in seller-fulfilled Prime, which is okay, but the net profit was like 3 grand. But I'm having to go in every Saturday, and actually, how do I scale that further? How do I get that to 50 grand? I've maxed out my shelves.
That's actually, when you look at it from that point of view, it comes down to how much you value your time as well. There's a big element of that. 3 grand profit for you to sacrifice every single Saturday is. I know a lot of people are like, wow, 3 grand, I'd happily give up my Saturday. But we're talking every Saturday without, what if you felt ill? What if you do this? You've got to do it. It's as simple as that. But
as a little caveat to that is the I didn't realize how nice merchant fulfilled on Amazon. You can sell a lot on merchant fulfilled as well. So I feel like I could probably just max out my actual fulfillment with the space I have just for merchant fulfilled and just with eBay, and my eBay is nicely growing. So I feel like for me, I've really learned that I really need to focus more on FBA, and that's the way I'm going to get to the next level. My numbers will get like I've posted sort of what I'm doing, and it's very good margin. It's great, but that is one of those things where I'm probably mumbling right now, is because it's been one of my biggest sort of like, what do I do, and do I stop SFP and just focus that time on something else?
I think, I think personally, I've never done seller fulfilled Prime. We will try it at some point. We thought we were going to try it this Q4, but we haven't. I think seller fulfilled Prime is good for expensive items, 30 to 40 pound plus, definitely from that point of view. But I tell you what, merchant fulfilled is pretty underrated, considering what it is. It's very easy. It's a very easy system.
Flexibility with couriers as well. That's a big thing.
Absolutely. Whereas you are very restricted in seller fulfilled Prime. And I think, and I've heard this many times, so I can't actually offer a personal view on it, but you're not the first person that said actually seller fulfilled Prime might not be all it's cracked up to be. And you know what? If you're doing eBay anyway, if you're potentially moving into something like Etsy or something like that, or some of those other amazingly popular selling channels, then you might just be overcomplicating things. Whereas if you can just keep it all with the same delivery, same couriers, same time frames, same costings, because seller fulfilled Prime is very expensive as well, compared to merchant fulfilled. And do you know what? When the algorithm changed a couple of years ago, I don't feel that it may be worth the difference. Whereas, merchant fulfilled, you can grab the buy box.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So it'll be interesting. Are you going to run it throughout Q4 and then make your decision?
I think so. I think that's the plan. You know what? I'll tell you. Basically, on Friday, I went to London. My friend was playing at the O2 Academy in Brixton. It's a brand called Don Broco, and they invited me, and I was like, I got to go check it out. And then I met some old friends, and we went to a bar till 2 a.m. I was like, oh God, I've got work tomorrow. I've got to ship some parcels. I really have to meet Amazon's quota or I'll get suspended. So me and my girlfriend had to take an Uber back from all the way from London back to north to Bedford just so I could send some parcels off. And I was like, do I really want this sort of life? Like where I got to spend every weekend? And to actually stop that from happening, I need to hire someone for the weekend, but then that's a lot of cost. And what's it worth? It's 25 grand a year, a month, a few grand profit. And it's just like, why don't I just use that, allocate those resources, that stock, send more to Amazon? And that stock might just get sold with MF anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, you could
I'm using this as a mentorship session.
Yeah, guys,
just get in the comment, get the feedback. Give me some feedback, people. Chris, I like the comments, Chris. It's just like what you're saying is like, that sounds good. Just get a supervisor, SFP. Yeah.
Emma says, lots of big Sean said lots of big sellers do it now. I know why. Absolutely, merchant fulfilled. The more I hear about it,
farmer packs, right?
I want to try. I definitely want to try it because I think you can't really comment until you've tried it, obviously, and given it a good period of time. We've got the perfect product that we're going to try it on, which is a new bundle that we're going to try it on. So I think it could work I think it could work well for that. But I tell you what,
do you have teams over the weekend?
We don't have teams over the weekend. There are people that are in the warehouse at the weekend.
Okay.
However, it would be during the test period. It would be Matt that would be doing it. I haven't told him yet, and I hope he's still not watching. But he, yeah. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. Because again, it comes down to what we talked about at the very top of this episode tonight. We're not self-employed. And when it comes to the weekend, I'm quite traditional in the sense of as soon as it gets to kind of 3 o'clock on a Friday, I shut down for my kids. And it's why I know everyone said, you need to make yourself available and everything like that. But my kids are babies. They're still little. I want to spend as much time with them as possible. So I'm unapologetic about that, guys. It does take me longer to get back on messages over the weekend because I'm maximizing my time with my children. It's as simple as that. I'm unapologetic about it. That's my time that I spend with my children and over holidays and stuff like that. So yeah, working Saturdays.
The CEO from Frasio is the big aggregator in America who sells buys all the private label brands. It's like Frasio. Yeah, the CEO, the CEO about the podcast and says he always takes weekends off and always does something else because his best ideas always come when he's not doing what he's not doing. So he says take that time off. It's really good for ideas and brainstorming.
If you are in your business constantly, how can you ever look at things objectively? That's the way that I see it. How can you ever, if you're not taking and stepping yourself out of it? I had my daughter was sick a few weeks ago, and it coincided with the time that I was taken out because of the holidays anyway as well. And it just made me look at things massively different. What I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do, what plans are for next year. I wouldn't have got that if you're continually as part of your business. So for me, kids come first. It's it's as simple as that, as they should, obviously. But that's the way I see it. Emma says seller fulfilled prime is hard. We were finding it difficult to meet the deadlines. Got suspended from seller fulfilled prime, and again, not the first time I've heard that. I just don't know if it's just worth it. So be interested to hear Jonny, your thoughts and your overall final decision, but sounds like to me you've made up your mind already.
Yeah,
to be honest,
I feel like I might just do it at Q4. I was going to evaluate in January, but I don't know, it doesn't, I feel like I can't scale it, so why put your time into it? Right.
And I think if you've got the access to the merchant fulfilled and as supply starts to thin, which it will over the next couple of weeks where people start running out of stock, merchant fulfilled will deliver the results I think that you'll need during the Q4 period anyway. So don't necessarily see it as, but I'm not your business advisor. If you want to give it, a full go to see what works for you, I think that's a sensible option. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christopher said, I've gone from doing 17 hours a day to 8 and having family time the last 12 months. Best thing I've ever done in the last 25 years. Absolutely. I'm never going to apologize for it, because it's something that, you know, it's the core of every reason why I run my own business. It's as simple as that. To do what I want, when I want, you know, with the people who I want to do it with, which is my family, Matt and my children, absolutely, and my friends, obviously. Sean said if it fits in a Royal Mail bag, they'll post it. I'm not really sure what that was in relation to, but there we go. So diversification through the warehouse, growth within the business.
I got a few others, obviously. So I've never found it easier to find. It's so easy now to work with brands and wholesalers. I feel I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because we're operating from the unit we work in, and I find it a lot easier now. Just saying like what we do, and I feel a lot more honest about the business. I don't know why. I just feel like, look, this is what we can do for you, and it seems to work a lot better. So I think finding wholesalers and finding suppliers and getting to the next level, and I feel like it's got easier. Oh, I've got better at sales. One of the two, I don't know, but
well, the more you do something, the better you get it. It's as simple as that. And you've been doing it for a period of time. And I imagine you're pretty good at building relationships and speaking to wholesalers, which is the most important part. But you're absolutely 100% right. When it comes to it, a lot of wholesalers have been businesses that have, you know, been around 20, 30, 40 years. They've gone through a period of time where they still have very traditional values and the type of suppliers that they work with. You know, we had something in ESA quite recently where we were talking about wholesale, and Luke was showing some examples where, you know, Luke uses a prep center, you know, 7-figure seller, very high volume seller, everything like that, where he's actually been rejected by the wholesalers because he's not a proper business. And, you know, that's no more on the traditional side of things. But when you can pick up the phone, talk to a wholesaler, talk to a potential supplier and say, right, this is my promises. We have this, and this. We're able to do this for you. If you bring the stock in, it means that I can, you know, I've got lots of different fulfillment options. We fulfill ourselves. We send to Amazon. We sell on multiple platforms. It does legitimize it. There's no doubt about it. And I think
I'm 100% honest about what I do now and what I'm trying to build, because I'm you know, if this is what you teach, but I've also, you know, I've got a trademark, I've got a brand now, and I'm trying to build. It's sort of like a little side project I can sort of want to build over the next, you know, 5 years. It's not something I really am focusing right now, but I'm starting to. I'm saying to suppliers, look, I've got this and this. I sell on Amazon, I sell on eBay. I am very honest with them now, and it works really well. And I feel like I don't know, I feel like a better business. I don't know, more of a business
coming together. Absolutely. Christopher says, when you say you work with Amazon, eBay, Facebook reps, no, we want to work with people like you. I send the video. I'm going to take a look at that in a moment. And to the managing director, it's so funny to see how fast the rep is at my door. I had one turn up the same day I emailed the director. You've just got to let them know kind of how serious you are, but at the same time being respectful of their business. Some of my biggest tips when it comes to wholesalers, and I completely agree, I think you can really ratchet up your business with wholesale once you do move into your own space. And it's not saying that you can't build a massively successful wholesale reselling business without your own unit. Of course you can. You know, most big prep centers have phenomenal facilities. They have forklifts. They, you know, do all the reworking for you. They'll do absolutely everything. But there is a certain level of security, I suppose, you know, from your own point of view, knowing that if you've always got that kind of space to have the stock and to be in control of it, maybe I'm wrong, but the way that I see it is if you're placing a 20 grand wholesale order, I'm going to feel a hell of a lot more confident having it delivered to my own warehouse so I can see it with my own eyes as opposed to it going through someone else. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I bought, I think over 10 pallets of just one advert calendar. And I know this product you covered on, because someone sent me a screenshot, because my seller name came up when you're covering well, what's your monthly mastermind you do again? Sorry, I forgot the name.
Elite sellers.
Elite sellers. Yeah, I saw the product come up with my seller name, and I was like,
oh no.
Yeah, it's fine. I don't care.
Do you know, I never look at people's stores, and I always say this. No, never. I never look at people's stores, never look up people's stores or anything like that. And I always do a little bit of a disclaimer beforehand where I say to everyone, I'm sorry if I bring up your store. I'm sorry if I expose something. I really don't mean to do it. It's not intentional in any way, shape, or form. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No. I don't. Honestly, it's like I think Luke doesn't care either. It's just for me. I don't care if someone finds out what products I sell. It's more the suppliers that are the most important part to me. But anyway, this certain product, the storage fees at Amazon are ridiculously expensive. Like, there's these big advent calendars. They're about like 90 per pallet or something, 100 per pallet. So it's just being able to store like 10 pallets, 9 pallets, and trickle it into Amazon has saved me quite a bit of money. And like I've completely dominated that particular listing, just because I've always had stock and I've always been able to control it. And that's one of that's the best example of that, of having the warehouse. I find the best benefit is how I've been able to control my inventory so well, rather than just sending it all in and spending a fortune on storage fees at FBA.
Yeah, absolutely. I know
I was proud of it.
Liquidity in stock and being able to drip feed it in, again, massive advantage of obviously having your own space. Presumably, now Sean asked this question earlier. I think I asked you this previously, and I think you said no. But obviously, when you do have your own warehouse space, it does give you the opportunity to potentially work with other sellers to offset some of the costs, to supply kind of prep services to other sellers, be it on a large or a small scale. Is that something that you're going to consider now you're actually in the space?
I can see why people get into it, because I think people go into warehouses and they realize, oh crap, I need a lot of capital to get a constant flow of stock in here so my staff aren't idle. And the worst thing you can have is idle staff. So if you have staff capacity, I guess why not bring in a few clients and they can fill it up. But right now I'm growing very quickly. I'm putting everything together. Maybe in a year I'm like, oh, I have a bit of extra capacity, maybe I can do it. But I don't know, is it worth the hassle? I'm not sure if it is really, because my staff are never idle, they're always working. And it's also just another customer relationship. This is another thing to deal with, right? Where like we were saying before, and like a great book set that everyone should read, it's called Built to Sell. And they say you should really just narrow down and focus on what brings in the money and what you're good at. And right now is wholesale, my own business right now, and I'm focusing and it's growing. But if I get to a stage where I've got extra capacity, what should I do with this extra space? I'm running out of capital. How can I get that extra capital? Well, you can start prepping for other people, because it's just and I can see why people get into it, and I can see why like Kev Bladburn stopped doing Amazon. It's because it's selling on Amazon, because it's a lot. I think it's easier to scale a prep center, because obviously you don't need capital for stock. You just need more clients and space. So I don't know.
I think it's a difficult one, because people see prep centers and they're hard. It's a hard business to run. It's not an easy business to run. It's not easy money to run a prep center. It is, getting there sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning, leaving at 9 o'clock at night, because you have shipments, you have clients, you have people that have certain expectations to do things. We've been through that 100%. And again, part of the reason why, we didn't want to grow our own prep center, who we bought in a partner with, because it was, again, something didn't want to do as part of working for ourselves, to be tied to somewhere. It went against what we wanted to do. So we bought somebody in who runs it from a day-to-day basis, and we have very little to do with it. That's the true entrepreneurial spirit, absolutely. So but that was a process. But building that and managing growth in a prep center
is
massive. You get it wrong, you piss a lot of people off. It's
I don't have the capacity. Have my own business, my own stock, my own staff. It's if I start spreading my wings too much, then I'm not going to be great, and I think I'm just going to be okay at everything, right? It's a good saying, right? That's actually, I mean, if I was going to get into a prep center, then I'll do what you did and get a partner, because that then you don't have to really put everything into it, right? You've got
absolutely. And prep centers, whatever way you look at it, it's all about customer relationships. At the end of the day, it's all about ensuring that you're delivering the best possible service. And when I was saying earlier about when we looked a while ago, and it was a long time ago now, just before the pandemic, about do we go into a bigger warehouse space, it's because we consciously made a decision at that point. We didn't want to grow the prep center any further. We didn't want 25,000 square feet. We didn't want 10,000 square feet. We were happy where we were. We were going to keep it as more of a boutique. We weren't going to do seller fulfilled prime. We weren't going to do merchant fulfilled. It was, if you want to send your goods to us, we'll send them to Amazon and we'll do a good job on that basis. It's like a boutique kind of prep center kind of thing. And but you learn a lot during that. And but yeah, prep centers, for anyone that's thinking of doing it, I don't want to put anyone off, but they're not easy businesses to run. I think people perceive them as easy businesses, easy money. Wow, 10,000 units, 50p a go. That's a lot of money kind of thing. But it's a hard worked 50p. First thing you said on the episode tonight, and I thought, yeah, you get it, because it is, you get a lot for your 50p. So, please take that into consideation.
I just wouldn't want to offer a bad service as well. Like, and so if I do offer it, then it's going to be a good service. I can sure that. But yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, so making that choice. So, I mean, we're coming up to 2 hours, Jonny. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It doesn't time fly when you're doing this, obviously. And, everyone's really hung in there. Special shout out to Emma and Christopher tonight for their comments. I know people that have been through exactly the same, and, massive experience in terms of that as well. But before we leave, we will give a shout out to your Facebook group as well. So we'll come on to that in a moment. But just before we do, any regrets? Anything that you maybe wish you had have done? Do you wish you'd done it sooner? Was it the right timing? I know you had the delays. Anything, you kind of kicking yourself over, or are you happy with where you are at the moment?
Yeah, I'm really happy. No regrets. I don't think there's no regrets. I think I've made a lot of mistakes, but those mistakes are something that are just inevitable with starting a completely fresh new business, isn't it? It's a completely new side. And one of the reasons I never wanted to sort of ever do mentorship or anything like that is because I never had that distribution experience and that warehousing experience. And I felt like I could never sort of be a proper. I've always that's why I always speak up about you and like Elite Seller Academy, is because you have all the experience, and I just feel like I've never had that. Such a big part of being an e-commerce seller is having that warehouse experience, that distribution experience. And no regrets, because I'm getting all that and I'm getting everything ticked off, and I feel like I'm becoming a better. Yeah, I feel like I'm becoming a better business person because now managing staff, I'm learning how to manage, and I think I'm doing an all right job because whether it's a good thing or not, but they say it doesn't feel like a job. My staff really like it there. It's a good culture, and I no regrets. There's always ways to optimize something, and I'm playing a long game, being patient, trying to figure out what works, what can I scale, what's going to be the most profitable in the long route. Maybe in a year I have a prep center. I might turn to a prep center. You don't know. Things always change around Amazon, and that's the thing about our business. Things change all the time, so it's just. You never know, and I just don't think you can have regrets in this business. And you live, you learn, you move on, and you adapt. Right? My story. Was suspended for ages, came back, went wholesale, and it's just gone up. And it's just going to be so many more mistakes and so many more things that I should have done it better. But I don't think I'd ever regret, and I think it's all part of the process. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I love this comment. G said it tonight. Something I've really been thinking about doing. I almost want to do so if anyone's watching and they steal my idea, you heard it here first. Whether or not we get the opportunity to do it in Q4, I'd love to do an in-person thing as well, which we are 100% going to be doing in 2022. There is no doubt about it. But I would love to do like a guru get together, and and take it that where we have all the really experienced, well-respected sellers, just stick them all on a massive live and just let people kind of like ask questions and throw questions at people, because I'm a big believer in you shouldn't just listen to one person. Go follow as many different people as you can that are doing well in this space, because not everybody has all of the answers. It's as simple as that. Some of the areas where I'm very experienced in, there are other areas like I'm massively lacking in experience, like
prepping boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't even know where to put the labels. It's as simple as that. But these type of areas on Amazon, and you grow as much as you can. We're selling private label in America, but that's been a massive,
so cool.
That was a massive learning curve for us. I said it last week, or I said it a couple of weeks ago. We were overpaying on the taxes for the first 4 months. That's like a rookie mistake from our point of view, but it's a new area. It's it's a new it's things. You can't do everything all at once. It takes time to kind of build this stuff up. So absolutely, I'd love to do that. And I even think I found the name as well, Guru Get Together. Guru Group or something like that. But I'd love to do something like that. I think that would be massively
a meetup would be so cool. I would love it.
Yes,
it'd be good to meet people in person and stuff like that.
Meetups are my favorites. My favorite thing in the whole world is networking, whether or not that comes from my experience in having my own distribution company previously, owning a beauty salon, and working in recruitment. 3 of those areas where networking is massively important. So I absolutely love that. Jonny, right before we go, like I said, Matt, thank you for your time. Guys, if you want to see more of Jonny, he does have his own Facebook group. I think you do YouTube videos as well, don't you? And
I promised to, but then I'm like, oh god, I've been in the warehouse till 9 p.m. Like, now I've got to make a YouTube video. But when I get that supervisor, I will be back on the YouTube and making videos. But check me out, Amazon Entrepreneurs. I think a lot of stuff I do is more advanced, I think, than like the basic sort of things. I like to talk about software quite a lot and automation quite a lot, sort of sourcing techniques, wholesale. For me, my expertise is wholesale and I guess automation systems. That's sort of my thing I talk about a lot.
What I was absolutely going to say was, I see you definitely as one of the people that is top within the I had the word then and I've forgotten it. It's the technical side of things. You love the software. We were talking beforehand, you code stuff yourself, you make bespoke software for your own business, all this different type of things as well. Absolutely, you're on the advanced side of it. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But I love the detail in which you dive into things and the way that you analyze stuff. I think it's phenomenal. So all the war stories we could share, absolutely. But yes, we will put a link up. I still haven't figured out how to do it live, but I'll put a link to Jonny's group in the comments here. So please feel free to join Jonny's group. Lots of fantastic information that comes, and you get to see pictures of his warehouse as well.
Yeah, then there are YouTube videos from a few months back, and some cool tips and stuff like that. It's worth checking through. It's I think it's a bit different to the rest of the groups. I'd say, like the information and what I post. That's what I like to think anyway.
Absolutely. That's what I said. Just guys, get out and experience as many people, different perspectives, try stuff, test, see what works for you. Christopher said, if you ever want to meet up, I can provide a big room. Rugby is a great place in the middle of the country to me. Absolutely. I like, that kind of thing. Absolutely. Christopher, I'm going to watch your video. I'm going to be dropping you a message tonight anyway as well. Because I don't know, I think you'd be a great guest for Nevermind the Buy Box, actually, after
sounds like you would.
The comments tonight. So I'm definitely drop you a message and we'll discuss about that further for sure. Bob says, great talk tonight, Jonny. Fully enjoyed it. Fully inspirational guest talk on here. Absolutely.
Glad to hear, Bob.
Couldn't agree more for sure. I will drop a link to Jonny's group. I think we've covered most things. Apologies if we haven't, but we did cover a lot tonight. Hopefully you guys have found it valuable. Hopefully, you know, if this is something that you want to consider in the future, that you might have, you know, gain some information from it that you can take forward to be able to use. Fingers crossed anyway. Next week, guys, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be joined by Sam from Blue 30 Prep Center. We're going to be talking, you know, preppy kind of stuff as well as Q4 stuff. Same time next week, 7 o'clock as always. I think it is on Tuesday next week. Yeah, definitely. Jonny, thank you so much. We wish you massive success for the rest of Q4. And I'm just glad that you finally got in safe and sound. And it just sounds like everything's a dream at the moment. Long may it continue. Yeah. But like I said, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I just love talking about Amazon. I could talk all day about it. So it's nice to, I love it.
Me too. 2 peas in a pod for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thanks everyone for watching tonight. Really appreciate it. Great numbers tonight. Lots of retention, which always means that you guys are interested in what we've got to say. If you're watching via YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm like the worst YouTuber in the world. I'm not really a YouTuber anyway. Please give me a thumbs up. Please drop a comment into the section. I've got to ask to do it more. I never ask people to do it, but you know, it looks cool. It makes me feel good about it, and you know, it gets the reach out and it gets more people watching the videos. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up and give us a thumbs up, not just me, and drop a comment. That would be very much appreciated. So I'll see you all next week, guys. Have a great week. Keep smashing it in Q4, and everyone stay safe. Have a good one. Bye.